Hi, this is Russ Andersson. In this tutorial, we're going to look at controlling ViewShift using meshes. Now, you should have already watched the ViewShift basic introduction tutorial, which described using splines to control what's moved. Now, using meshes, as we'll show here, is useful when you already have or can easily generate a 3D mesh for something you want removed. Now, here it's going to be the lamppost. Now, we're going to start with this already solved scene. It's just one of my generic test shots. It's not really ideal for this, and it'll show some bad things happening and what to do about them. And it's not going to be a super pretty final result. Rather than showing every individual step, I am going to walk through a few things. If you look around, there are a few supervised trackers that I've added into some special locations, and we'll run through those as we move through the tutorial. Now, I've set up a coordinate system which uses some of those supervised trackers. You'll see one down there, another one over here, that are part of what would normally be a basic coordinate system set up with a *3 button. But here we've gone and set up a link between these other two trackers that I set up along this wall, right along a corner, and those are to give a good strong vertical reference. So those are set up to be locked to one another, and the X and Y coordinates are set to be the same, so we're making them be along a single vertical line. It's a little bit different kind of coordinate system setup than usual. So here we are over in the perspective view, and you can see I've got a start here on the lamppost model here. We've got two cylinders there. You've got a little cone at the bottom. And now we're going to go and add on to it. If you look at the pole up here, you'll see there's a banner hanging off the side of it. And there are actually a couple of trackers that are there that are automatically created that we're going to use just to build up a little mesh for that flag. So to do that, we're going to spin over here and do assemble mesh. We're just going to click on these trackers. Each time it's creating a vertex there. Let's just zoom in. We don't want to get anything else here. So we just have a simple 2-polygon mesh that's the flag. Now, it's not super exactly in the right spot, so we want to go and make it a little bit larger. To do that, let's just clear the edit mesh here. You just want to do that at any point. And I'll show what happens next. That's not the way to do it. Here on Edit Pivots, the pivot point for this mesh isn't where we would like. You don't see it when it's selected. It's down at the origin, actually. These tracker meshes are set up that way. They're actually using the coordinates of the point as the vertex coordinates, and that feeds into some other things you can do. But here for our next trick, we want to do something a bit different. So we're going to go and run a script that's center pivot, and it's just going to bring the pivot point up into the middle of that mesh. And having done that, we can go and just scale it up a bit. So that way we're sure to capture the stuff around it with a little luck there. So it'll be kind of close there, but hopefully we should, encompass that entire area. remember here that the model that we're building here is something that we want to remove. It's really going to wind up being used more as an outline. Its 3D information isn't necessary per se for the process that we're doing, but just in order to get the right outline. That's unlike the reflector mesh that has to actually match up with the real world fairly accurately. So now we have this mesh set up for the little banner there hanging on the pole. Now let's take a look at that reflector mesh setup. So I go over here to the hierarchy view, and notice there are actually two different things sitting over here still. One is a card that I set up in the area of this text here. We're going through a phase. There's some trackers on that. So that's sitting back on that text. And we also have a plane that's on the ground plane. So that's representing that patch of sidewalk that the pole is sitting on. So those two things together are going to be the reflector mesh. Now let's go and start setting up the ViewShift. We'll set up our output file again. And here, since we're going to be controlling it with meshes, we need to set up and tell it which meshes we want to remove. So to do that, we're going to select them. So maybe we'll just go and we'll select over here. We've got the cone. Now we're just going to shift select the two cylinders. And we also want this tracker mesh as well, but not the planes that are the reflectors. So we're now going to click this button that is Set Removal Meshes. You'll see their names appear there. One of the things that you can do also is if you unselect everything and right-click this button, it'll just reselect them. So that's an easy way to go and be able to see what you've got in that entire list. You can go and select it and go to the end also. But if you want to get a quick look at that, and then you can either toggle some of those selections to either add things or subtract things, and then just hit the Set Removal Meshes button again. And we are going to go and we'll set a disjoint leading mode. And we're going to click the Run Now button. And you notice it's not running terribly fast, and you'll see in a minute why that is. It's kind of a clue already what's going to happen. So here's our version. You notice, there's the pole sitting there. So what's going on? Let's go back and we'll look at our ViewShift, and if we scrub through, you'll see that the frame control is always just pointing out what the current frame number is. So the issue here is this cone down here. And the unfortunate fact of the matter is that you can't get rid of that bottom part of it because there's no view that can do away with it. There's nothing behind it. It's sitting right on that removal plane. So there's no way for it to go. So the disjoint calculation is never able to find a different frame to use. And that's why it ran so slowly. It's looking through the entire shot, trying to find some way to do it. And consequently, it takes a while. So here's a countermeasure for what to do about that. We're going to just go and unselect that cone and hit that removal meshes again. So it's no longer being removed. Now we don't want that cone to be used as part of the reflector mesh either. So we're just going to hide it. In fact, we really didn't even have to remove it from the removal mesh list for that matter either. We could have just hidden it. And it would have had the same effect, but I wanted to show just taking that out of the list. So now let's try it and see what happens. So now you'll see it's making much better progress through the shot. And now, in fact, there we are with our set of frames with the pole removed. Now, we'd still like to get rid of as much of that base as possible. To do that, we can make this visible again. And actually, we want to get it back onto our list of things to be removed. This is why it would have been easier just to leave it there in the first place. So we've got everything there. Now, of course, we'd be right back in the same problem, but instead we're going to switch to that absolute mode. And now we can run again. And now we're using the timing as if we were looking for the disjoint only on the other part of it. But we are doing the removal on that bottom part as best as we can. So you see that here, and you'll see that when it flips from the beginning to the end of the shot, you'll see something strange that happens, and you'll see that it's trying to get rid of as much of that as it can with a reasonable degree of success due to that little dodge. So let's take a look now at how we're doing with the actual composited result. I'll just switch to put that over the background. Now I can scrub through this, and you'll see that there's some strange little things that happen up at the top, where here you start seeing a whole bunch of the speaker is visible, even though it's being blocked nominally by this mesh that's saying, hey, we want to remove this, but here it is appearing again. And if you look at what's happening, you see this nice smooth border on the bottom of that, and that is due to the source image. We're just running off the edge of the source image. So the image that we're pulling from, has reached as much as many pixels as it can supply. It doesn't have the additional pixels to replace this. So it is simply leaving those pixels untouched for you to see and to adjust as best you can. However, obviously if the shot was a bit more stable in the first place, this would be less of an issue. Now you'll also notice that there is an issue here along the edge. You see that doesn't necessarily line up all that super well. And if you think about what's going on here, and you look at this, we actually created that reflector plane back where the text is. But the front edge here is actually a reasonable distance forward of that. So in order for this process to really work accurately, you do have to have a reasonable model of the set that's here. So we can go and refine our model a bit more to make that happen. To create a plane for that front face of the building, I'm going to take advantage of some trackers that I set up earlier. So I'm just going to select those now. And over here on the grid menu, select this 2 facets and trackers and all. So let's put the grid out there. And now I can go create a plane on that grid, and I'm just going to sweep it out here so it's on that front portion. Put our grid back when we're done. If we go and orbit away, you know, that plane is sitting out in front of the other one. That's the front of the building. I'm just hitting the backslash to toggle that back and forth. To do this really accurately, you know, we need to cut this portion out of the plane there that corresponds to that arch. And we don't have a way to do that nicely in SynthEyes at this point. But it turns out that because this is a black background, we can kind of cut some corners here. And as always, you want to take advantage of the corners that are available to you in any given particular shot. And we can just roll ahead with this as it stands. So let's go and run it again. And now as we scrub through the shot, you look up here, you'll see that we have a much, much better match. We don't have those little discontinuities along that edge that we did before. That's just because our model is now in better correspondence to what reality is. So we're building up the model for the set, you know, using the tracker data that we're getting out of SynthEyes. As in our initial tutorial using splines, at this point, the thing that is most visible, ignoring the little base and the stuff way up at the top, but the thing that you see most now is the difference in intensity level between the part that we are transferring and the part that isn't. So again, we can do the illumination compensation. And if you go and you look over here, you'll see that there's a supervised tracker that I set up earlier. And it's actually an offset tracker. So the underlying tracker is down here. But I've moved it up and expanded it so that it's sitting on that facing wall. That's the thing that we want to have match up. So again, for the lighting compensation, we're going to go and create a new light, and you can maybe drag it around a little bit. Mainly want to get it up, and I think we're probably somewhere over there. And again, if we wanted to work on it, there's actually the shadow of the post is there that could be used to place that light. But we have the light set up. We need to get our tracker selected, and we'll go and run our set illumination from trackers script. So we wind up with the lighting curve, and you can see that it's not terrible. It's fairly constant. It droops a little and then gets a little brighter at the end. Now we can go and bring back our ViewShift. We'll turn on the illumination compensation and run it again. So we're going to pretty much declare victory at this point. you know, there's still a number of artifacts lurking around in here that, you know, you could maybe work on some of them with a little more accurate modeling. You have the problems with the stuff where the source image, you know, the part that we need ran off the edge, that you're going to need to do something else on, some sort of painting. And you probably need to do some painting down here for that base. And so, you know, part of this is, you know, how accurate are the 3D models that you're working from? What sort of issues do you have in the compositing? Some things you're just plain not going to be able to make go away this way because you don't have replacement images available. You're probably going to need to do something about this shadow because that's kind of a big giveaway too. And you know, sometimes you're just going to need to drop a flower pot on something. So hopefully this gives you an idea of some of the things that you can do. This is, you know, above all, a creative tool. It's a tool for you to use in some way that helps you out. It's not necessarily a magic wand that will fix all possible things. So thanks for watching.